Hey there, and welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show, where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. I am Casey Watts, school impact strategist and the host of this show. Now, if you are here, then you inevitably are an instructional leader who wants to make change happen, even when change seems impossible. And you can do that if you have cohesive, vision-driven teams that have done clarity work. They know exactly where they're headed and how they're going to get there. These teams have done identity work, and they've built their self and social awareness skills. And they have done collaboration work, and they know how to move beyond faux collaboration to get to true collaboration where change happens and where people get on board. I'm so excited to bring to you conversations that help you to do exactly that. The work that needs to be done to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Hey everybody, welcome to our conversation today. It's a little bit lighter than what it usually is because I usually go live at about 7 o'clock and I usually go live on Sunday evenings. But here's what happened last night when I went live. I decided after I pushed the record button or go live button that it probably wasn't a good idea because I had a tickle in my throat and I didn't have my drink nearby. So I was talking, and then I started getting a little bit choked, and it was like so much so like this itch that, and I was trying to control it, that my eyes started watering because I didn't want to cough in the middle of my live and I couldn't reach for my drink. So I was getting super flustered, super confused by this itch in my throat and not being able to reach my drink. Finally, when I did reach my drink, it didn't help at all. And so I didn't know, I was thinking like, what in the world is going on? And I realized, oh, I had popcorn. I had popcorn before I did my live, and there was a kernel stuck in my throat. So I just decided I'm going to do it over again. This is my do-over tonight where I'm going live. I haven't eaten popcorn before I've gotten started. I have 2 drinks with me. I've got my water, my bottle of water right here in case just something crazy happens. And I also have coffee because I started my morning with coffee and I'm ending the day with coffee. So if you're here with me tonight, let me know. It is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So for some of you, it may be earlier in the day. And for some of you, it may be a little bit later. And I hope that your day has gotten started so well, that you're off to this great start. A lot of you have just started this school year. And I know that with the start of a school year, you inevitably are trying to get people on board with things. Maybe you're trying to get them on board with a new curriculum or program. Maybe you're trying to get them on board with implementing some specific instructional strategies. Or maybe you're trying to get them on board with working collaboratively and beginning the true work of PLCs. And I'm here to tell you that no matter what you're trying to get people on board with, I've got some things that are hopefully going to help you out tonight, because that's what this conversation is all about. How to get people on board and then how to keep people on board. Because the last thing that you want to happen is for your initiative to fizzle, right? Like last night I said, there are some things in life that you do want to fizzle. Maybe your child's relationship with his girlfriend, you want it to fizzle maybe. Or maybe you've said something at a meeting that you didn't really intend to say, or it went over not the right way. And you're hoping like, okay, over time, their tension will fizzle and it'll just all be okay. But school initiatives, you don't want to fizzle. So let's talk about what it is you could be trying to push out, what it is you want people to get on board with. So I've got a few different things here that you might be trying to get people on board with. And I want you to put in the comments, if you're here with me tonight, just put 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. What is it you want people to get on board with? And I want to say, before I jump into these 5 things, I've got a picture, 2 pictures here, one of an A380, and this is like an Airbus, right? And it's massive. And then I've got a picture of this like 2-seater Vespa. Depending on who you are as a leader and what you're trying to accomplish at the campus or district level, you may feel like you're trying to get people on board this Airbus, this massive Airbus, or you may be trying to get people on board just a small little 2-seater Vespa. Your change or your initiative could be really big, or it could be really small. And I am here to tell you that no matter how big or small it is, no matter how big or small that thing is that you want people to get on board with, it can be hard, right? We all know that change can be hard. Getting people on board with things means that change has to happen. And that can be a scary word for people. So let's think about how you are feeling about getting people on board with things. And we're going to get to the heart of this first, because you as the instructional leader are the person that is trying to get people on board. And that inevitably comes with a variety of feelings. So consider for a moment how you're feeling about that. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling excited? Are you feeling anxious or frustrated or hopeful? A lot of the time I hear people saying, I feel anxious, but I also feel hopeful. And we can be in those 2 different feelings, right? You can live in both lands of anxiety and hopefulness. I want you to think, though, about how teachers and staff might be feeling. If we were to flip the script, how do you think they are experiencing this rollout of this initiative or this new curriculum, or moving into PLCs when they're unfamiliar with it? How do you think they might be feeling? Are they feeling overwhelmed, excited, anxious, frustrated, hopeful? Put in the chat what you think teachers might be feeling about what it is you're trying to get them on board with. I'll tell you, most of the time I hear leaders saying, my teachers feel overwhelmed. My teachers feel frustrated. Very rarely do I hear people saying that teachers feel excited or hopeful. It's all of those negative terms. But why is that? Why is it that there is frustration and overwhelm when we are trying to get people on board with things? And the answer I have already stated, it's because of the change. Change can be hard. Change can be scary. So I want you to think too, though, if you were able to get people on board, like if you were able to help teachers experience success, experience growth in their craft as a teacher, and help them to see growth in student learning, how would that feel? How would it feel if you were able to help teachers to move beyond the feeling of overwhelm and frustration? What would that feel like? Put that in the chat. I'm thinking you probably would feel excited, right? You would probably feel like you've empowered them. You would probably feel valuable. You would probably feel as though you have a true purpose where you are, and that you are a catalyst for moving things forward. And you want that not only for your teachers, but you want that for yourself as well. So let's talk about how you can move in that direction. And I want to tell you that there are some questions that we have to consider in order to get to helping your teachers to feel empowered. So in order to create that experience for teachers, and in order to create and have and feel your own pride in making change happen, we have to think about what's already been done and what needs to be done. So I'm going to zoom in to this picture, and I'm going to go through some of these questions I want you to think about. And you can put in the chat yes or no to any of these questions that I state. Okay, so let's make this a little bit bigger for you to see. And I want you to think about two different categories. We're going to think about what your campus or district has done and what you or other instructional leaders have done. So, has your district or campus set expectations for the implementation of the initiative or whatever the thing is that you're wanting people to get on board with? So, if it's a new curriculum, has your campus or district set expectations for the implementation of that? Has your district provided training? If you're jumping into PLCs, you need people to get on board. Have teachers and staff been provided training? And has the district or campus surveyed the staff to gauge their attitudes and beliefs about whatever it is that you're trying to roll out? What are their attitudes and beliefs about this new curriculum? What are their attitudes and beliefs about the instructional practices that you're asking them to implement? What are their attitudes and beliefs about PLCs and planning times? What are those things that your campus or district has done, or have they not done any of those things? Or have they just done some of those things, or have they done some of those things a little bit, right? So put that in the chat, whatever you're thinking about your own campus or district. And then here's the other category. Have you or other instructional leaders, and here are the questions, have you developed teacher-led committees where you have specific teacher leaders that you have grouped together and brought together to discuss the rollout of this initiative? Have you, the instructional leader, considered which smaller components to focus on first? Have you thought about that? Just like, what is the one thing that you want to start with? And then finally, have you, the instructional leader or other instructional leaders, cast a vision and scripted the critical moves? Has anyone cast a vision for what they want people to get on board with, and have they helped those people to think about exactly how they're going to get there? So remember, these are just questions to consider. Think about how you might answer them, yes or no, and you can put it in the chat. So let's move forward and think about what you were expressing earlier. Earlier, I was asking you about how you felt about rolling out this initiative or curriculum, whatever it is that you want people to get on board with. And we also thought about how teachers are feeling, right? And a lot of the words could be like overwhelmed, anxious, hopeful, frustrated. Those could be the words. I'm hoping a lot of you are feeling like hopeful instead of the negative words, but our reality a lot of the time is that we're experiencing overwhelm and frustration. So think about your whole campus or district. And I want you to try to decide where you would say your campus or district is regarding this initiative. And I've got 4 pictures here. So you're thinking about A, B, C, or D, wherever you would be. Are you A, there's this clear and straight path. People know exactly where they're headed, how they're going to get there. It's basically like this runway towards success. Or is your campus or district at B? It's like a very, like, kind of where you're headed, but it's a really bumpy and unsteady road. Or is your campus at C, where it's really foggy and clear and no one knows exactly where they're headed or how they're going to get there? Or could it be that your campus is experiencing D, where people have their own agendas and they know where they want to go individually, but people are all jetted off in these different directions? Where could your campus be? Put that in the chat. And I'm seeing C. C is so common, where we know, like, we're driving, we're all headed somewhere, but we don't know where we're going. We don't know how we're going to get there. And that's when things fizzle. That's when we know that we've lost sight of what the vision is, and we've lost sight of the steps to get there. So I'm going to ask you, why is that? Like, why is it that a lot of people experience C, D, or even B? Why does that happen? What is it that's impeding teacher clarity or staff clarity? And what's holding people back? What's holding you back from moving people in one direction and moving people forward? Here's what I hear all the time that could be impeding clarity and holding people back. Teacher buy-in, or a lack thereof, actually. Dysfunctional PLCs or teams who are talking about everything but the important things. A lack of clarity about expectations of the initiative. Lack of expectations about how are we implementing this curriculum? Lack of expectations for what goes on in PLCs and planning meetings. No accountability from campus administrators or district administrators. It's a tough reality, but sometimes that's the reality. Sometimes people feel like they're held back because there's just too much to do or too much to cover, and they don't know where to start. They are confused, and therefore they remain stagnant and in one place. And then sometimes I hear people saying that what holds them back is the constant turnover rate. Too many new teachers, too many new hires, and they feel like they have to start again and again. And by the time you get to the end of a school year and you begin a new school year, they feel like they're starting a brand new focus or a brand new thing. And it makes it tough to get people on board. Give me a thumbs up in the comments if you feel like you've experienced any of these things that hold you or teachers back from moving forward and keep people from having clarity. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience, and I did blur out this picture a little bit for a couple of different reasons. Number one, these I wanted to keep these ladies' faces private, but also I wanted to show a mirror of how people were feeling about what we were rolling out or what had been rolled out to them. It was just that really foggy road that they were headed down. And this was a team that I worked with on trying to implement a new curriculum. Now, the year before I met with them, their campus or their district had purchased or adopted a boxed curriculum, which we all know boxed curriculums are anything and everything that the publisher could possibly think of to put in the curriculum, and it is overwhelming, right? Really, you're meant to just pull pieces from it and use it as a resource, but these teachers have been told we're going to implement this curriculum with fidelity. Okay, now there are a lot of problems with that. One of which is that no one had clarity around what anyone meant about the word fidelity. And the word fidelity, as you know, can have lots of different definitions depending on the person, right? And their experience and their perspective. So no one knew exactly where or how to start. Because when you say, we're going to implement this with fidelity, you have two different camps of people and then a few people in the middle. One camp of people is hearing the word fidelity, and they are going to go back to their classroom and they are going to implement every single little detail down to a T because they want to get it right. And that's going to lead to burnout and a lack of teacher capacity and frustration. And then you have the other camp of people who go back to their classroom and they say, ain't no way I can implement that with fidelity. So I'm just going to go back to what is comfortable and familiar to me. And they resort to their previous methods of teaching. It can be the same with PLCs. It could be that you're wanting to implement this initiative for PLCs and you want everyone to focus on utilizing certain protocols or frameworks. And you have some people who really are like want to do it with fidelity, and I use that term loosely. And then you have those who think there's no way we can do that with fidelity. It's not realistic, and they resort back to previous habits. So here's what happened with the use of the curriculum. Because I was experiencing people in both camps, it fizzled. The use of the curriculum fizzled. So some tried to implement it to the maximum degree possible. Some went back to their classrooms and pulled from a variety of resources. And so the campuses were back at square one, all because they lacked clarity. No one had taken the time to create clarity and build capacity. And it's not because they didn't want to, and it's not because they didn't see that it needed to happen. It's because they didn't know how to make it happen or where even to start to build clarity and capacity, right? And a lot of leaders experience that. So, how do we make it happen? How do we create clarity and build capacity? How do we support a successful implementation of any initiative, vision, or goal? Because you need to be the person that provides clarity. Okay, so hear me out. If you are an instructional leader who is listening to this, be it an instructional coach, an instructional specialist, a director of curriculum, a campus administrator, or a district administrator, you are the instructional leader who is responsible for bringing clarity to your initiatives, visions, or goals. So if you are that person, there are 2 broad action steps that I'm going to be telling you about tonight. And I do want to share that these action steps come directly from my Clarity Cycle framework. And if you want to hear more about the Clarity Cycle framework, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about that later. So I would love for you to stay on to hear this great story that I have all about how it came to be and how you can learn more about it and implement it with your campuses. Because truly, these are just small snippets. There's no way I would be able to cover what I can share with you about clarity cycles in this small amount of time, but I did want to take some pieces, some nuggets of gold from it. So let's go through these action steps. Let me zoom in just a little bit. There are 2 broad action steps that you're going to take. You're going to take implementation action steps, but then you're also going to take coaching action steps. Okay, so we're going to look at implementation action steps first. You are going to, with anything that you want to get people on board with, you're going to gain insight from stakeholders first. That is your first step. And what I mean by stakeholders is truly anyone who has a stake in student learning. So it could be your students, of course, teachers, community members, parents. It could be campus leaders or district leaders. You're gaining insight from all of those stakeholders about this thing you're wanting to move forward. And you're asking them, tell us what your initial thoughts are about XYZ, whatever it is. Ask them, what have you thought about this in the past? What are you thinking about this if we were to move forward with it? What do you feel like it could look like? If you were to envision what it ideally looks like, what would you say? You're gaining that insight from them so you know how to take this next step, which is to determine a primary focus. Now, determining a primary focus is like taking this big, broad thing and you're breaking it down into more molecular pieces, right? So I can only create clarity and build capacity if I can determine smaller, singular destinations. So it's kind of like looking at, if I was going to think about curriculum, this boxed curriculum was just way too overwhelming. So I had to decide, okay, we cannot attack all of this year, and we cannot attack even some of it by the end of this semester. So we're going to break it down even more. What is going to be our primary focus from this curriculum? So if I have purchased a reading curriculum, maybe it follows a workshop approach, and I want to focus just on mini lessons. And I've determined that by thinking about the insight that I've gained from my stakeholders. So determine a primary focus. What is the molecular piece that you're going to have people to focus on? And then your next action step is to cast vision and script critical moves. You're casting a vision for that primary focus because you want people to buy into it and get on board. You are scripting the critical moves for them to get there. So if your focus is like the singular, smaller destination that you want them to get to first, then your critical moves are like the mile markers along the way to that singular destination. Okay, so those are implementation action steps. But remember, I told you that there are also coaching action steps that you want to take. The coaching action steps are to learn by doing, identify strengths, and to coach in all directions. Learn by doing. Listen, we cannot support implementation of any initiative unless we are getting in the trenches with our people. We have to get in the trenches with them regarding anything that you're trying to get them on board with. If you're implementing new curriculum, you're going to ask them, hey, can I come and plan with you? Can I come and take just a few days to teach from this curriculum and see what it feels like and experience it? Maybe you're going to co-plan or co-teach with them and get firsthand experience with that thing that you're trying to roll out. If you're asking people to get on board with new protocols or frameworks, then you're going to get experience firsthand with that and then debrief with them and further gain insight so you know how to move forward and take next steps. Again, you might ask them, what's on your mind about this protocol or this framework? Here's what I'm thinking about it. Here's what I've experienced. You are going to be able to move so much more quickly and so much more smoothly if you have that firsthand experience, if that's at all possible. And I do mean that for any leader. If you are an instructional coach, if you're a campus administrator, if you are a district administrator, get your boots on the ground in some, even if it's a small way, get your boots on the ground in some small way. And then finally, you are going to coach in all directions. You're truly going to be that 360-degree leader. So as an instructional leader, you're coaching no matter if you're an instructional coach or not. So you're coaching teachers individually, yes, but you're also coaching during PLCs and during collaborative conversations with people. You're coaching individuals to connect with one another. You are coaching people to, oh, guys, I skipped over identify strengths. It's okay. I'm going to come back to it. So let's finish with coaching in all directions because it'll kind of lend itself into identifying strengths. But you're coaching your people to connect with others who have had mastery experiences, and you're coaching fellow leaders to empathize with those you're asking to get on board with things, right? Every stakeholder has his or her own perspective. And as an instructional leader, it's your job to coach them to understand the perspectives that may not be their own, right? So if you're coaching in all directions, then you are absolutely trying to identify strengths that you can not only just notice and name, but you're also going to capitalize on them. Okay. And you're capitalizing on what people are doing well regarding the focus that you determined in your previous action steps, right? So we determined that focus, we've cast a vision and scripted critical moves, but we also along the way want to identify strengths and decide what are people doing well with this focus, because you want to create multiple mastery experiences. If they do not have mastery experiences, then there's no reason for them to want to move forward and make a change. Okay. And I'm actually thinking both of those could be flipped. Those two action steps could be flipped. So it could be learn by doing, coach in all directions, and while you're coaching, you're identifying strengths. Okay. So what I want to know right now is what's been most useful for you after having heard these different action steps. What's really standing out for you? You can put that in the comments. I would love to hear from you. If you're catching this replay, put hashtag replay and let me know what's been most useful for you in this conversation. Now, my next question is, what would it take? What would it take for you and your teams to implement this initiative successfully? What would it take for you to get people on board successfully? And envision what that would look like. And here's what I want to leave you with before I move on. Now, I'm about to bring a story to you and tell you more about how this has looked on a campus that I've worked in and how clarity happened for this campus. So if you're willing to hear the story, you want to hear more about the clarity cycle, stay on because it's going to be a great story for you to hear. But I want to leave you with this quote. When a campus leader provides clarity, they increase the possibility for teachers to see how they belong as a significant contributor to the greater purpose. When a campus leader provides clarity, they increase the possibility for teachers to see how they belong as a significant contributor to the greater purpose. Okay? If this resonates with you, then you are likely the kind of leader who wants to dig deeper than what I've even been able to touch today, because you know that the greater thing that we're working toward is truly creating clarity, building capacity, and we know that that's going to lead to hopefully collective efficacy. But this means you have to get everyone moving in the same direction as one cohesive team. So if you feel like that's true, I'd love for you to stay on so I can share a powerful story about how this happens. Now, here is my dear friend. I've kind of blurred her picture to keep things a little bit confidential, but this is my dear friend, Shannon. And Shannon she was a kindergarten teacher. She's getting her administrative license. She's going to be a fantastic principal one day. And she has always asked me questions about how I do what I do. And one of her questions has always been, how did you get everyone moving in one direction? Like, how did you do that? And she had experienced the change across time of me coming to a school where no one was really moving in one direction. I kind of compared it to an anthill being knocked down with ants scattered everywhere. And we slowly but surely rebuilt a colony together. And she kept asking that same question, but how? How did you move everyone in the same direction? And I would say to her almost every time, like, well, I mean, it's really all about bringing clarity and casting vision. She was like, yeah, but how? Like, what does that mean? And I would say, well, I read this book and I read this book and I've done this kind of research and I've kind of pieced those things together to cast a vision for you guys and script the critical moves. And again, she was so persistent. She never took that first answer as the answer for her. She wanted more. And I'm not going to lie. I was like, I mean, golly, I've told you about 20 times how I'm doing that. But she didn't stop. And finally, she said to me, Casey, you're telling me all of the things that you've done that come naturally to you. It comes naturally for you to cast vision, to see like what does the future possibly hold, what could be and what should be. And you also naturally think about all of the steps to get there. But for someone like me, that doesn't come naturally. I'm really good at listening to someone explain how to do something and checking it off my list, but I can't just make it happen. I don't have the time to go out and do all of the research. And even if I did, I couldn't take all of that and piece it together in the way that you have. And it made sense to me that she needed someone to tell her exactly how it happened, because these broad ideas of getting everyone moving in one direction can be so ambiguous unless it just comes naturally to you. So out of Shannon's quest to grow as a future principal, I was able to detail all of the steps that I took as a leader to move everyone in the same direction. And I want to say, out of Shannon's quest was born the clarity cycle. And I will forever be grateful to Shannon for helping me to create this clarity cycle. It is a framework to bring clarity to big or small things so that teams can move in one direction toward one vision. It outlines each of the steps that someone might need to take to help move everyone forward. And I want to talk you through really quickly those 6 different steps of the clarity cycle. Identifying needs. is the very first step. And I talked a little bit about that in this live session. Gaining insight. Remember, I shared you're going to gain insight from a variety of stakeholders. And that's going to help you to, number 3, determine a singular focus. And once you've determined a singular focus, you're going to be able to cast a vision for that focus. And once you start casting a vision for that focus, you're going to be able to script critical moves that are like the mile markers that help people get to that ending destination. And then along the way, you're continuously celebrating systematically. Those are the 6 steps of the Clarity Cycle Mastermind. Those are the 6 steps that came from my work with Shannon, who constantly asked, but how? How do you get people moving in one direction with one thing? And I'm so excited to be able to provide a Clarity Cycle Mastermind. I've done the Clarity Cycle Mastermind. This will be my 2nd time. I did it in June, and the June cohort got all of these things, but if you join my Clarity Cycle Mastermind for the fall cohort, get a few additional things. And I'm really excited to be able to provide this to you and teach you exactly how to go through the Clarity Cycle framework with your campus so you can build those cohesive, vision-driven teams. So with the mastermind, you get 3 live virtual sessions with me and other cohort members where we get to mastermind around these 6 components of the Clarity Cycle. You get a printable copy of the Clarity Cycle workbook. You get access to ongoing discussion with me and other members of the cohort through Marco Polo. And then you also get follow-up individual coaching calls, because here's what happens. You get started doing some of the work, right? And we're starting in September. Come October, November, you're going to want to follow up with some coaching calls, because inevitably, when you start paving the way for people to make change happen and you're building clarity, you're going to hit some roadblocks. And that's what those individual coaching calls are all about. Working together through those roadblocks. And then you also get additional resources in a private Facebook group. Now, here's what I love about this. And I didn't include in this slide, but you are getting these 6 different Clarity Cycle components emailed to you in video form. So it's like an email course that you have access to always and forever. So if you want to learn more about it and you're itching to learn more, go to catchingupwithcasey.com/Clarity Cycle. You can find out all about the Clarity Cycle Mastermind. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about this Clarity Cycle Mastermind, because some of you might be thinking, well, how do I know if it's right for me? Or how do I know when to use a Clarity Cycle? The very first answer that comes to mind is, for anything and at any time, you can implement a Clarity Cycle. And what I love about it so much is that you really can implement a mini version of the Clarity Cycle with anything big or small. But here are some ways that people have used the Clarity Cycle to implement new curriculum. It's fantastic for that, to improve the intentionality of small group instruction. If tier 1 instruction is lacking, guess what? You might need a Clarity Cycle in place. Maybe you're having a problem with student engagement. A Clarity Cycle can help bring clarity to why that's happening and what to do to improve student engagement. When PLCs are lackluster or stagnant, your teams just might need clarity. And if you're finding things that are impeding that clarity, you can navigate your way to clarity and to success. If you're introducing a new protocol or framework, or there's a lack of clear communication on your campus, what's impeding the clarity there? What's impeding communication? Let's have a Clarity Cycle around it. When you have teams who are ready for the next level of greatness, a Clarity Cycle can help them with that. And finally, if you notice that student behavior on campus is consistently a struggle, you might decide to implement a Clarity Cycle with your teams so that you can get down to the root problem and decide how you're going to determine a true focus that will support that and script critical moves to make change happen. Guys, a Clarity Cycle can benefit you at any time for any significant change that you want to make. I want to share with you just bold pieces from these testimonials that I've gotten from people in the past. And then we're going to close. And I just want you to be thinking, what's been most useful for you? What question are you leaving with about the Clarity Cycle Mastermind or about what I've shared tonight with you? But here we go. One of my Clarity Cycle Mastermind members said that she was able to break down larger initiatives into smaller, more manageable pieces. That's what you want. You want the smaller, manageable pieces, not just for your teachers and your staff, but for you as an instructional leader. And then another member said, I was able to think about where my needs were and devise a plan. Guys, if you only have hopes of moving forward and getting people on board with things, then it will only be a hope and a wish. Without a plan, it will only be a hope or a wish. So I'm going to leave you with that. What I want you to do right now is go to bit.ly/claritycycle. If you are a person who is ready to create clarity and build capacity, then you are ready to join the fall cohort with me. I am taking registrations right now. If you are an instructional leader of any kind, this could be so great for you. And I want to get to know you and I want to be able to support you. So let's end here for tonight. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And if you are here and finishing this conversation, let me know what was most useful for you here tonight. What are you taking away from this conversation? And let me know either in the comments or reach out to me, catchingupwithkc.com, catchingupwithkc@gmail.com, or you can message me on any of my social media platforms. Okay, guys, I enjoyed this conversation. I will catch you on the flippity flip. Hey guys, I want to give a huge shout out to you for tuning into today's Change Catalyst conversation. I would love for you to do me two solid favors. Number one, if you have enjoyed this or any other Change Catalyst conversation, do me a favor and hit subscribe. I've got a lot of great content and guests coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number two, if you are thinking of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this show, share it with them. The only way to make change happen is through a multiplier effect. And you can be a multiplier by sharing this show. Until next time, I want you to go off and do the great things that change catalysts do.